Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. And Rob, it is early here in Honolulu.
Yes, we sprung forward and took away your sleep, didn't we?
We did, but come May 16th, the studio is being disassembled and put in
May 16th.
May 16th is the date that the show gets, or the studio. Well, I might wait until the 17th. We might be able to do the last show in the studio on the 17th, but then it gets tore down and we're putting it in a container and sending it across the ocean. So we have a couple of months left here in the studio before we go to the new studio. And then the time zone won't matter, because if we do the show at the same time, it'll be noon for me. So
that's true.
I'll be able to.
You could actually have a normal morning.
Yeah.
Get up and get breakfast, get your coffee,
and sleep or whatever.
And sleep. Yeah, right. That's right.
You're in a new room or something, or did you change Did you decorate the current room?
Yeah, it's been this way for a while. I put a bookshelf behind me and put up a bunch of my microphones.
Okay, so you have a little something besides a bare wall back there.
Right, exactly.
Well, anyway, for those of you that are joining us wondering where Tom Webster is, he'll be here at the bottom of the hour, and he's going to be joining us for about 30 minutes. So we've got a little time to talk before he shows up.
Yeah, that was done kind of intentionally, because I think Todd and I have some stuff that we want to share with you before Tom gets here. But yeah, Tom's going to talk all about the infinite dial research study, and hopefully we'll go through that and pull out some more details from that maybe he didn't share before. So that'll be great.
Well, I've been head down all week. Of course, I've been watching what's going on in the space. But what is the top of mind with you at this time, Rob? What's of course, we should ask you, how did your trip to Spain go?
The trip to Spain was amazing. It was to an island off of the northwest coast of Africa. So it was kind of an unusual place to fly into. It's called Los Palmos. And it's just a relatively small island there that the whole team converged on to spend 4 or 5 days together, meetings, hiking, doing all sorts of stuff. So that's what that was all about. So trying to, there was quite a few team members that I hadn't met before, because as the year goes by, we add new people and they're scattered all over the world. So I don't get to see them much. Video calls.
Yeah,
that's about it. But that's what that was all about.
Wow. If I think about it here, when we do our retreat, we go to cool places like Chicago in February, and and this year we're staying in Columbus. I guess I don't have the rich man's budget as you guys do to fly 20 people to an island.
Well, it's not as expensive as you think, because most of the team is actually in Central Europe. So it's just it was like a 3-hour flight flying straight down to this island for most people on the team. So yeah,
but still on an island. Woo! You guys.
I know.
You guys. Anyway, I saw you guys' pictures and stuff on Facebook. So it looks like you had a good time and schemed to conquer the world.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we're always doing, Todd. We're trying. And I know you are too, so there's no kind of concern about that. Really.
No, I'm not scheming to conquer the world. I'm trying to get out of Google purgatory.
Oh no!
That's
not good.
Those of you that use Google, well, it's basically the Google. You basically can tie your domain name for email and all that stuff to Google, right? And so I guess they call it. I don't know. It's the next level. We pay for it. And I could send an email from Todd at blueberry.com to Mike at blueberry.com, and that email would get marked as spam.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, my goodness.
Right. And we were like trying to figure out, well, what happened was about a month ago, we've used groups in that service to do email distributions. So it would come to like support, and then 5 people would get the email, right?
Right.
And they don't like that anymore. They don't want you doing that. They didn't tell anybody this is not a good practice. They just made this arbitrary change, and I'm like, I sent you an email. Well, I didn't get it, and then we start looking at our spam. Like, what is going on? Right. So so there is actually, when you pay for service, you can actually call someone at Google. So the first time Angela did the call to them, they're like, "That's impossible." And we're like, "No, it is." And then the second call to the next tier, "That's impossible."
Wow.
No, it's the problem. And then
what's happening. Yeah.
Finally, we got someone to listen to us, and they kicked it it went way up. We're like in almost in the top tier of Google support, which according to what I'm being told is rare. And they've been working on it for 3 days. 3 days to figure out what's going on. So we don't think it's just us. They may have, what we think they did was anyone that was using Google Groups to do email distributions, we got rid of all that, remapped it the way they wanted it to be. And it wasn't, we're not sending spam, it's just regular email. And it went into, we think this whatever they were using to flag the groups moved over and was also flagging email, but they won't admit it yet. It's getting better. We're about 95%, but boy, oh boy, it was rough there for about a week trying to figure out what was going on, and no fault of our own, following all the right rules, and stuff still went sideways. But anyway, I digress. I probably shouldn't even said it, but it's, we all have our challenges, but so anyway, what's top of mind with you?
It's a good segue, Todd. Google support is probably a good segue to the next topic, which is talking about
Google.
Google seemed to have made a couple of moves this past week in the podcast area to support basically cross-platform web pages to support playback of podcasts.
Is it really a big deal though?
Well, beggars can't be choosers at this point. We're just looking for crumbs here, folks.
Yeah.
And I think progress is progress when it comes to big companies like this. So
I guess what we should do is explain a little deeper what this does, what this means. Does it work on my? I'm using a Chrome browser here. Can I see the impact right here on the browser?
The only way I've been able to get to it is off of a link URL.
Oh,
to that specific page. I don't know that it's available in search results.
Oh, so you basically go to, let's go to the new media show. So you use the regular Google link to see it?
The Google podcast link.
Okay,
yes.
So we'll go to new media show. And actually, let me see if I can do this magic and bring this up here. And if
the Google Play podcast link.
Right, the Google Play, right. So let's try. So I'm clicking on Google Podcast.
Right.
404. Okay, that's nice. Why is that?
Maybe you're not using the...
Oh, that's kind of... That'll have to be investigated. So let me...
is that the accurate deep link into your podcast in Google Podcasts?
No, I thought it was. What the hell's going on here? All right, let me try this. Oh, okay. So let's go back, and so there's Geek News Central.
Okay, how did you get to it?
I clicked from the Google. So something's wrong with my new media show link. So I'll have to go back and check that.
Oh, okay.
Good to know. So we've probably been losing subscribers because that link was. See, here you go. We're supposed to be experts.
Right.
So really what it is then is, all right, so let me click on one of these. Oh, that's interesting. And then what else? Mark is played. No. What other features are there? There's a little button over here. Oh, there's a download.
It doesn't appear that there's any way to subscribe to it or favorite or anything like that.
But at least if someone clicks it in a browser, as long as the link is right, it'll go to where it's supposed to go.
Now the question gets back to is this discoverable in a search, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the Google browser.
And I don't think so currently.
I don't think so either.
But that would be cool. That's what we keep saying needs to be done. It needs to be added to, the Google search as a image, as an audio. Right now they've only got a video link. So there's really nothing, if you just go to google.com.
Yeah, I just did a search for Spreaker Live Show in the search results, and I'm not seeing that come up in any of the search results.
Right. Go ahead.
Which you would think would be the top result. You would think, right?
Yeah. So I had someone recently complain to me that they couldn't get my Google Podcast stuff had not updated on Geek News Central in a while. And I'm just like, well, send me a screenshot. I told them what to send me, and they were subscribed to that old Castbox feed. So someone had thought I had quit podcasting, and they were subscribed to that hijacked feed that they had over a year ago.
Wow.
Isn't that, well, not a year ago, it was 9 months ago or so. So there was ramifications, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, is it of significant value, do you think, to have that page show up in the search results if there's no way for a listener to really subscribe to it or engage with it?
The value for me, at least, is because I get so much web traffic to Geek News Central, is that if someone clicks on that link in a browser, then it'll be good. Then it'll work. So they'll be able to get to at least to a page where there's a player, but they're going to leave a page that had a player on it already. So, I don't know how much value there is. If they're doing that with let me think about it. With a mobile device,
I mean, that's kind of what it looks like this page is designed for. It's more designed for the mobile browser, just the actual dimensions of the page itself. It's very kind of narrow.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like it's a page that's, top of mind is a mobile browser.
Yeah.
So that's what it was designed to be displayed in. But if you, like I'm going to it here, and there isn't really, it doesn't appear to be any way to engage with it at a deeper level.
No.
Now, in the left column, if you click on the little hamburger link in the left right-hand corner,
it says download.
Yeah.
It says download the app.
Yeah, that's the only thing. That link needs to be more on the show page.
Well, what happens when I do that in a browser? Oh, it tries to get me to, okay. That does me no good. It takes me to Google Podcasts is what it does.
Right. So we're still, and I think James over at podnews.net had an article up that he posted talking about how Google Podcasts soon on Android, iOS, and web. So I'm not sure what that really means, but here. Okay, so talk about naughtiness. There's no links. There's no links back to Geek News Central if someone happened upon this. Right. They do keep all my metadata in place. So, that's one good thing. Let me see on play episode. There's only mark as played. What does that do? If I click on it, takes me back to the main listing. So you just basically, unless you have a link to your home site in the show notes, which I might have to do, is, just as a take me home type of a link. Well, if you click on the little stacked dots on to the right of the play episode, there's a mark as played.
Right, so that's it. Yeah.
It's not going to do that automatically,
No.
Which is surprising. And it does make you wonder if it remembers where you left off. So let's say, okay, can you play it?
Yeah, I can play it, and it starts the player on the bottom of the page. Now, let me see here. Did it start playing?
Yeah, it started playing on mine here. It's just
it
the
did.
question is, if I reload this page,
So,
does it
let me
remember?
Okay, went back to the main page. It does. It keeps it loaded on the bottom, so I can go to a different episode. And now let me go ahead and let me refresh.
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
When you refresh, you kill it.
I refreshed the page and
it
started from the beginning.
And it started from the beginning. Oh, they do have the ability to listen in more than 1.0 speed.
They do? Where's this?
It's at the bottom by the. You can listen at 3 times speed. Hey, they got that in there. So yeah, okay, yawn.
Yeah. Well, I guess you have to crawl before you walk, right? Is that the takeaway here?
Yep.
So, there's places to put functionality here, which is a good sign. So adding capability should be easier once we have this. I guess this makes it visible across platform, which is what Google needed to do.
But it's got me freaked out because I just yesterday had my Android phone and was testing New Media Show and Geek New Central in the new media using the link that's on my website. So why is my link on? So I'm gonna have to I don't have it handy with me, or I'd try it right now. Use the Android phone to see why my link is going 404. Rick said in his in the Facebook post, he says my link's going 404 too. So is it not implemented across the board yet? Why would it go 404 yet my app work?
I don't know.
Yeah. So, hey, Mike, I know you're listening. Maybe you can try it on your Android device and see what happens. So, anyway, weird. Yeah, very, 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 very odd. So, anyway, Google, but they got to do more than that to move the needle here. That's just putting lipstick on a pig. That's what you're really doing here.
Right.
There's nothing to me is very exciting with that.
Yeah. Well, I just noticed too, I got a link to my Spreaker Live show on Spotify.
Yeah.
A while back. Same instance, whatever. I just clicked on that URL link that has been working all along,
and it's dead.
That one's dead. So yeah.
So let me see here. Let me try it on here while we're embarrassing ourselves. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Spotify, what happens? Okay. It came up for the New Media Show. It came up like it's supposed to. Now, look, they have the last episode. So that works. And here's the funny thing is there's not much more functionality
with Spotify?
In Spotify, right. Yeah. Okay, I know you're using cookies. Yeah, so, Spotify, and because it's almost, without the, of course, it looks to me almost like Google ripped this off from Spotify, but, of course, we laugh about this, but, if I click on Apple Podcast, it's not much better. It's not much better, because
though Apple does have an audio player online. I noticed. I can't remember how to get to it, but I did see Apple had an audio player. I thought.
Yeah. So Apple Podcast, yet everything still says view in iTunes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but supposedly, we're not supposed to use the word iTunes anymore.
That's right. But you can't play right here. You can't play on this page that Apple set up. You know?
So I guess Google has leapfrog Apple.
Yes, in that instance they have. Let's see, who else can we test? Well, let's go look at Stitcher. Let's see if Stitcher works while we're looking. I never click on all these links anymore. Slow Stitcher. Stitcher, your page rank. Let's see here. Yeah, well, they're they're behind. They haven't pulled the latest episode. Oh yes, they have. Yeah, they're up to date.
Yeah.
So Stitcher's good. Oh, and subscribe on Android is definitely good. Yes, that works. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the beginning
Yep.
of some improvement. So, like we said, crawl before we walk here, and hopefully we'll see incremental improvements over the next few months on that, and hopefully it'll show up in search results as well.
So, Rob, we've got an interesting thing going on in the space right now. And I just have
Which one?
This is funny as hell. All right. So I'm going to bring this up on the page for those who are watching. There's a new person on Twitter. And he has followed you, me, James, a whole bunch of people. He's followed a lot of folks in the space. And we're all speculating on who this is. And it's got the Twitter icon is basically a picture of George Washington with the name Feedback. And the actual Twitter address is @not_Nick Qua. And so I announced this morning, new media show today with guest Edison Tom Webster, so blah, blah, blah. And then this person's right on spot replied, "Who needs the Avengers?"
Okay.
So I followed this guy. He whoever it is, this is funny. He has a sense of humor, and he's providing little quips back to people. And he was really dogging on James Cridlin a lot. And so he even knocked on James, saying, not on James, but on Tom. He says, Edison researchers predicting 53% of podcasts will heavily feature Rami Malek by 2021. Infinite dial. So, I have a suspicion who this is. I do. I think I have a suspicion. Matter of fact, we've been talking a little bit about who we think this person is. Do you think the prediction is right on who this may be?
I don't know. They've definitely gotten our attention here. What's the actual?
The actual Twitter is not NOT_Nick NICKQUAH not Nick _Nick Qua. So if you're watching _ Nick Qua. I'm being quite entertained, and so we'll see how it goes, because I have a funny feeling that it's reading the tweets that are coming through. I think we're all fair game. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some shots taken at us, but it's the little things that make me giggle. And to me, this is hilarious. So, yes, I have a suspicion who this may be based upon some of the initial tweets, who they were taking shots at. I'm like, is it a disgruntled podcaster that's really pissed off? Could it be? I don't know. So,
yeah. Huh.
It's definitely not Nick Qua, because Nick Qua has never, ever, 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 ever. If he mentioned my name, he would probably turn to ash.
He probably exploded into flames, right? Yes. Yeah.
But I have to admit, I have to give props where props is due. There has been actually one or two good pieces by Nick Qua. I'm thinking, who they got writing for him?
Who's the ghostwriter?
Right, who's the ghostwriter putting these together? I'm like, but he.
Hey, well, Nick, I believe is going to be at the NAB. He's going to be on a panel at the NAB, so maybe you get a chance to catch up with Nick.
But he put something out about. It read like there was this it was something to the effect of, for a guy who's he was dogging on himself, for a guy that's not held a single job more than 9 months. It was something to that effect. And I was like, what? You're actually going to say you've never held a job more than 9 months? Of course, there was no context. Did he say I quit? Did he get fired? He didn't really. I said, I don't think I would have ever put anywhere that I only held a job. The longest I held a job was 9 months. So, right. To me, it was kind of a little bit of a surprise that it was like, lift up the curtain a little bit there. And it's just, to me, I would have never put that out there. It was the first sentence, and I was just like, wow. It's not something you put on a resume. I've only held a job 9 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he is making some funny comments in here. About
it is funny. Yeah. And then he's, dogging James about, not being Australian, actually being British, and he has all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. There's one in here, too, about the Edison research is predicting that 53% of podcasts will heavily feature Rami Malek by 2021. Infinite Dial. Yeah. I'm not sure how funny that one was, but that's okay.
I'm looking for Tom. We're at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
If you're watching, Tom, go ahead and ring in anytime.
Right.
I don't see him in the. Did you give him? Is he coming? He's coming before on GNC, on the top one, right?
I gave him pod 1. Yeah, I'm calling in on pod 2.
All right, I don't see him yet.
Let me see here. If I can write him here really quick.
All right. Well, he will show when he shows.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think it'll be okay.
We'll cover up the trophy for a minute and look for him. So anyway, I've really been thinking about this upcoming move, Rob, and ramifications and all the things that I've been doing. So I'm actually been talking to my audience about what the new studio should look like. So I guess I'll put it out here. Those of you that have been watching this show, we're going to have a new set, and I'm going to run a contest on the new set design. So I'm probably going to do two things. I'm going to do a sitting set and a standing set. So, and then I'm going to have enough room to probably build 3, maybe even 4 studios in the building I'm going into. So, if you guys have some ideas on what we should do for the new set for the new media show, let me know or drop us a line, because this thing's been status quo back here. I had someone in the studio yesterday.
There's Tom.
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Hello there, sir.
What is going on?
We are here talking about podcasting, of all things.
I've heard of that. Here's what I want to talk about. I want to go back to this not Nick Qua thing.
Oh,
because I'm convinced it's Todd.
It's not me. I can't be that. I can't be that. I can't be that. What do you want to call it? Quirky.
I asked Nick about it. It's like, did you know that you have a troll account? And he said, I'm terrified. But I actually don't think it's a troll account. I think it's sort of a not pod kind of thing,
right.
of varying quality. I'm certainly a little pissed that they released some unreleased infinite dial data about the Rami Malek thing, because I believe that's true.
I know, I saw that.
What?
Right. Yeah.
I believe that's true. Yeah, that's confirmed data from Edison Research.
Oh, now I know you're being quirky. You got me there.
Who could it be?
I have a suspicion who it is.
I would love offline to know your suspicion, Todd, or make some news.
I think it's
right here, Todd.
I think it's a pissed off podcaster that got fired recently.
I think saying it's a disgruntled podcaster who's pissed off narrows it down not at all. I think you've cut it down from 100% of the podcast population to about 89% of the podcast population, and I'm not sure that's precise enough.
Well, look at the initial tweets on it, and they were going after Gimlet initially.
Yep, equal opportunity.
So I'll just leave it at that. You guys can. And this is, I'm not the only one that made that guess.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts too, which I'm not going to share because I enjoy continued employment.
Right.
But yeah, I have some thoughts about that myself.
Okay. Well, so we'll see how the trend is if it turns. Whoever it is they're watching right now, we know you're watching. So, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see if it turns attack or if it turns quirky. It's interesting so far. So, but anyway, for me, it's good fun. So some people may not think it's good fun after they get called out or whatever, but it's just,
no doubt,
we need a little excitement in the podcasting space once in a while. But anyway, here or there, Tom, Infinite Dial, I have to be honest with you, with all the stuff going on, that was, Podfest was happening, Rain was happening, I had meetings going on, I was like, did Infinite Dial actually get announced? And I had to go back and like 3 days later and look at it. So please tell us, what were your highlights?
This is actually, from a podcast perspective, I think the most consequential year ever for the Infinite Dial. I mean, you guys know that we've been tracking it since 2005. I've been, schlepping these PowerPoints around to conferences all over the world for the last 15 years. And as the three of us and many others know in this space, it's never had like super high growth curve, right? But this year it actually kind of shot up. I mean, as much as it's ever shot up, certainly the largest percentage increase that we've seen in all of our primary podcast measures. So this has been a consequential year without a doubt.
So Tom, it's rather ironic as I look at the data that there is a decline in social media usage, and how that correlates to the uptick in podcast usage. Because I do have this feeling that in the past, if you look into the past, that one of the contributing factors to podcasting kind of going into the kind of darker ages of the mid 2008, 9, 10 timeframe for podcasting was because of the popularity and growth and hype around social media. Do you think that there's a correlation between those two things?
Well, I mean, I guess I prefer to think about the positive aspects of podcasting, and there's just been so much money and promotion thrown into the space that it was just sort of bound to happen. And if anything, I'm surprised it didn't happen last year. But you're not wrong to at least draw some linkage between the decline in social media and in particular Facebook, which we reported they've lost 15 million users in the last 2 years, and and a huge loss on the young end, 12 to 34. And I think it's because gradually, as we have discovered things like podcasts that are entertaining, we've realized that our friends aren't that entertaining anymore. We need more entertaining friends, and until we get more entertaining friends, we're spending less time on Facebook and more time on podcasts.
Right.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I can certainly see this factor of trust is definitely a big factor in podcasting, and I think trust has been somewhat eroded on the social media side, and I think psychologically that may be the root of this.
I from social media aspect, I understand. My son just left yesterday to go to an event, and I asked him, I'll say it's a big media event. He's going to a contest, basically competing against people from all across the United States in Seattle. And I said to him, where are you going to be posting stuff? I said, he said, well, I'm not posting on Facebook, and he's 15. So I said, okay, Instagram or Snapchat, or where are you going to be? And he said, I guess Instagram. And so he's kind of like impartial to it. So, but he's definitely not on Facebook.
Yeah, I have a 14-year-old, and he's not even registered. He has no account on Facebook, has no interest in it whatsoever. And I think Facebook is under so many different pressures. On the young end, what's the point, right? That's where my father is. I don't want him seeing my stuff. But then folks like you and I and Rob, I think it's kind of what what are we being fed every day?
Yeah.
I'm very judicious about what I take in to my fragile ecosystem.
Yep.
And Facebook is not a particularly good actor right now, so I think they're getting the manifestation of that. And one thing that I love about every kind of research has its pluses and minuses, and obviously the infinite dial is survey research, and Facebook can report that they're adding users in terms of user accounts, but there's no way that what we are seeing would show up to them unless they're just looking at usage, because these aren't people necessarily that have gone through the whole draconian process of deleting their account. They just stopped using it, and they're telling us they've stopped using it. And you know what? I believe them.
My habits have changed on Facebook over the last year. I when I get on Facebook now, I feel, well, it's not good for my mental health.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. So I hang out. I've got like 4 browser windows that are in, podcast movement community, podcast help community. They're all in the help communities. And I try to stay away from the news line as much as possible, just because of the ilk, I guess is the better word.
Yeah, it's toxic.
Yeah, it's toxic. It's the same with the news. I don't watch the news either because it's toxic. I don't watch any news.
I made a rule for myself a couple years ago, and it's kind of saved my sanity. I do watch news and I do read news, but what I don't ever read, I steadfastly refuse to read them, no matter who sends them to me. So I've stopped reading editorials. I don't need editorials about the news anymore, because it's only going to, I'm only going to disagree with it, or it's going to rile me up. And I don't need any of that. I just want the news.
Yeah. You made an interesting comment with the space having there's no way the space couldn't have grown in, I guess for a better word is, let me look at the actual slide that you guys call it. Let me actually bring it up here. There we go. Let me move ahead. So, okay, the familiarity, I can't even pronounce that this morning, at 197 million, a big jump, 64 to 70%, I'm assuming here. So the question then is, with the money coming into the space and driving a news cycle, do you think that, I guess the roundabout question is, that's a great number. I love to see that increase. But at the same time, what do you think about all the new money coming in the space?
Well, I actually got into a little bit of a debate with someone on a public radio talk show. I did a radio call-in show on a big public radio station in California, and the person, I didn't intend on having a debate, but they had put me against somebody to talk about this, and the other person was talking about how this will kind of squelch underheard voices, and I don't think anything is going to harm the kind of open, free, available grassroots podcasting as it is. I'm still 100% behind that. I know you're both 100% behind that. This is about what I talked about at Podcast Movement last year. It's about the 52, I called it, the additional 52 million that it would take to get to 100 million weekly podcast listeners, which are really people that have made it a habit. And they're different people. They're different people from the three of us who have been listening to podcasts for a very, very long time. And for them, it's really going to be about that cool show that they hear about somehow, whether it's To Live and Die in LA or Over My Dead Body or something, kind of maybe light years from where podcasting started. But it's going to be, one would hope, a gateway drug that gets them to actually at least look at a podcast directory, gets them to look at a website that showcases podcasts, and turns them on to spoken word audio. Because really the major finding to me out of Infinite Dial this year, it wasn't just podcasting that went up. Podcasting, the people who say they've ever listened to a podcast went from 44% of the population 12 plus to 51. That's finally a majority. That's a milestone for podcasting. Yeah. But also audiobooks went up from 44 to 50. And we've seen in our share of ear research, another survey that we do, that the time spent listening to podcasting as a share of all the time we spend listening to audio has doubled in 5 years. I mean, what all of this means to me is it's kind of a renaissance for spoken word, period. And, if all of these sort of new venues and new entrants and entry points into podcasting, whether they're with the streaming services or one of the several new, Netflix for podcasting portals. I don't really care because it can serve as a gateway drug.
Yeah. And I had a lot of people talking about this at Podfest. They were like, "What about us? What about us?" And there's genuine concern with, I wouldn't call it with established podcasters. Yeah. The new podcasters are like, they don't know enough about the space to even worry about it. But I'm in the same boat. I'm like, and it's just like the analogy I like to make. It's not necessarily a good one, but the NRA guy with his gun in his hands, he says, "You're not gonna take my, I'll be over my dead body," that type of thing. And whereas the corresponding relationship is, "You're not gonna take my open source RSS feed away over my dead body." And and the thing is, no one's even really no one's attacking the RSS feed. It is what makes a space what it is. So no one is going to be a gatekeeper anytime soon. That's not what the space is about. It's not going to have gatekeepers. No.
Will there be exclusive content behind certain paywalls? Yeah. Sure. But why should podcasting be any different from any other medium, period? All mediums work that way. Yep. Everything can coexist. Having Netflix didn't kill all of the YouTubers out there. The new doesn't kill the old.
No.
It will either make the old better or something else will happen. And if you're one of the established podcasters that's been in the space serving an audience for a specific niche or a deep dive on a topic, I think the best thing you can do is double down on your passion, double down on how much you're willing to commit to mastery of that content and mastery of that content space, because maybe some of my listening time is now being taken up by the next salacious true crime podcast that's become a rat hole for me. What's going to get crowded out are not going to be the shows that are super passionate, super committed, and actually increase my knowledge about a thing I'm interested in. What's going to get crowded out are the ones that are neither fish nor fowl. So all you can do is work on your show. Work on your show and forget about somebody else's show. Work on your show.
Yeah. And almost go back to some of the fundamentals. I keep telling people, you can reach out to shows that are similar to yours and cross promote. It's such a novel idea.
It's the secret sauce of public media, right?
Right.
And it's now this, and the sort of new entrants into commercial podcasting, like Wondery, have learned from that. And whenever you finish one of their limited series podcasts, they've got the next one all set to recommend to you. Mm-hmm. Just the way that HBO is done. When Game of Thrones or Westworld is done for the season, they've got the next show ready for you, and that's the secret sauce.
It is. Yeah. So Rob, I've been hogging the mic here. Go ahead. You had some.
That's okay. I think as we've been talking about all this, I've been looking at the slide, the average time spent listening to online audio, and we saw a huge jump going from 13 minutes and 40 seconds on average in 2018 to 16 minutes and 43 seconds on average people listening to online audio. And it does kind of bring back to me as I think about it, why is that jumping? Why are people listening to more audio? Is it the quality increases? Is it, are we making content now that is more appealing to listeners as opposed to the kind of content that we made in online audio just back in 2016 when it was only 12 minutes? So Tom, is there any indication of what is driving that number higher?
It's probably it's an exaggeration to say it's 1,000 little paper cuts, but it's probably 8 or 10 little paper cuts. I think it's the increased in awareness and for some people available quality content in podcasting. It's a big interest, as I said, in audiobooks. It's the availability of those things increasingly in the car, and it's also you have to look at things like Spotify really showcasing spoken word content in a way that they haven't before. And we know from our research that that's had an impact. But I think as people think about online audio, it's now a bigger pie to them. And for many people, it's not just Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, Amazon Music, but now it is also podcasting. Now it is also audiobooks in a way that maybe they hadn't been conscious of. And smart speakers are helping too. I mean, we also have research that shows that people who own a smart speaker, the average is that they own two. And increasingly, about a third of them own three. And what that's functionally doing is putting a device for online audio in rooms of the house where they didn't exist before.
Yep.
Not many of us necessarily walk around with our earphones on and our phone plugged in as we walk around the house. But, now people have these devices in their bathrooms, in their bedrooms, and in their kitchens, and they're just getting more opportunities. We saw in our smart speaker research that we did with NPR, the Smart Audio Report, that increasingly people are telling us that the time they're spending listening to audio on their smart speakers is replacing screen time. It's replacing time that they spent watching television or spent on their laptop or on an iPad or something, and that's deliberate, that there's a deliberate attempt to get away from screens. And so that's putting audio into the conversation in environments and settings where maybe it wasn't before.
In my house, we're probably way above right of the curve significantly, because I've got an ALEXA device. I've got every device in this office just because I do tests, but there's a...
You do have something called the Geek News Network, I believe,
yeah.
which would make you a geek.
So then there's one in the living room. My daughter has one, and we have one in the bedroom. So in this house, there's four, and my son just asked, he wants one. And I'm like, why do you want one? And he says, oh, well, listen to music. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I caught my daughter listening to a podcast a couple of days ago, and that was a first, and she's 23, and I, be honest with you, about fell down in the hallway when I heard it. But so it is making inroads, but it's still pretty tiny, right?
Well, the smart speaker space is growing.
Well, the space is growing.
Yeah, the space is, and I think we've talked about this before. Podcasts are still kind of underperforming on smart speakers in a way that, say, audiobooks are not. In particular, Amazon has done a very good job with the Alexa and Audible integration because it's in their best interest to do so. But podcasting is still a bit of a challenge, I think, on a screenless device, and it's the quality of the skill is going to determine the quality of the experience. But if you want to go back and hear back episodes of a long running show, it's not so easy to do on a smart speaker.
That's
so
true.
It definitely lags behind.
Yeah. So there was one additional slide was the slide it was talking about the monthly podcast listing, and this was huge jump.
Yeah, biggest percentage jump we've ever recorded.
It's huge, from 26 to 32%, or 90 million people that listened to a podcast in the last month. For me, that's very, very exciting. We need some bigger jumps here, and if we don't, we won't make it to, the numbers we need to be at. But this is big.
Yeah, I mean, is there any clue on what has driven that growth?
Yeah, it's there's a demographic story, and then there's kind of an associated story behind that. Every major demographic grew to a pretty good extent, even on the 55, 65 plus end. But the demographic that really shot up like crazy was really the young end, the 12 to 24 end, 12 to 34, 12 to 24. Those demographics grew to an even greater percentage than any other, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is certainly the amount of content that is being created for those demographics, which were not necessarily an important part of, the 2005 to 2010 era of podcasting. There was a lot of tech podcasts, Todd, like yours, and so on. And there just wasn't content being served to them. But the jump 12 to 24 went from 30% of 12 to 24s are monthly podcast consumers to 40% of 12 to 24s are monthly podcast consumers. That's a 33% jump. And, part of that is content. And there's a Spotify story. We've been seeing it. I'm sure you see it in your data, both of you. I know Rob Walsh sees it in Libsyn data. Spotify is a strong number 2 right now in a lot of platforms. And that strength really appears to be on the young end. Because not only overall did 12 to 24 go from 30% to 40% monthly consumers, The Spotify using 12 to 24s, you look at the 12 to 24s that use Spotify, that went from, I think, 32 to 50 something, if I'm remembering. Oh, you're 53. Yeah. I mean, that is a massive, massive jump. And, correlation's not causation, but it's a pretty good clue. They're very associated, those two numbers. And I think having the streaming platforms in general, Spotify may be firstest with the mostest in terms of commitment, but they're all going to follow. Having them commit to showcasing and highlighting and suggesting and recommending spoken word content, podcast content, it's going to have a major effect. I mean, we've been talking about Google getting into the space and committing to the space for, but I don't know, since I was a boy.
Right.
But it is Spotify, it is Pandora. These are the true cross-platform apps that are going to have a bigger impact than Google will.
I'm jury's out on Pandora. We'll see.
We'll see, right? I mean, it's obvious that I just wouldn't count them out, right? I mean, in the U.S., they're a $1 billion company. They're still the leading service in the U.S. Spotify obviously has the global edge. They have really good technology and a really good sales team and a completely different business model. And I think, Todd, you and I had this conversation at, maybe it was the last New Media Expo about Spotify. And I think you at the time had a we'll see attitude about Spotify. Well, we saw. It took them a few years, and there's no way. I mean, this is a true battle for platform domination. Both of those platforms and some others want to be the single source for your audio entertainment, and you cannot do that if you don't have podcasts.
That's right. And I think if I was Pandora, and if Pandora's listening, I would look at slide number, let me look at it here, 52. And I would look at slide 52, and I would put that on the board on any discussions you're having on how you're going to onboard and get bigger and how you're going to bring an entire library of podcasts to Pandora. You're not going to do it with every podcaster having to sign an NDA, every podcaster having to sign a contract. It's not going to happen. So they're going to have to figure it out, and time will tell whether they.
It's also a really slow way to get into the space and ramp up to take advantage of the opportunity here. I mean, I agree with you, Todd. I think it's clear, just based on this research, that Pandora needs to look at what Spotify is doing, look at what Apple's done for many years, and say, how can we fit into this growth pattern and help add this content to our service in a way that's even more compelling than what Spotify has done.
So, or in a way that's different, Rob. I mean, they in a sense have different audiences, right? I mean, the Venn diagram of the Spotify audience and the Pandora audience they don't perfectly overlap. And Pandora is really strong, 25 to 54, and from a streaming perspective, really strong, 55 plus. And that means different presentation of content. That means different content showcase. That means different recommendation algorithms. So it's not a zero-sum game, and that's the exciting thing about the audio space right now, is that the entire audio pie actually is growing in a way that it didn't, 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Because I think what we're seeing is definitely Spotify is bringing new listeners. That's always good. That's we got to have new listeners. There are some people that are crossing over in using Spotify primarily versus what they used before. But I think the net is probably much larger on the new listener side than it is on, people that are shifted from using a podcast app. But, I think though I look at this and I'm wondering, that it just love to be a bug on the wall in the Apple offices. What do you think the conversation is going on over there? Are they going, do we need to step up our game, or do they even care?
I think they care, and I want to state up front here that many of the brands we are talking about are clients of ours, and so anything I say is not it's not coming from something I know. I think Apple Music is trying to be very competitive with Amazon Music. Smart speakers have made Amazon Music grow considerably. We show that data also in Infinite Dial. And it's a real scrap right now for your earballs.
Yeah.
And, people are, at heart, people want simplicity. They want to be able to go to one source for the things that they want. At heart, most people do. really active users of the web and mobile devices, maybe they're fine having a slightly better specialized app for every single thing. But, the average mainstream American, the more that one thing can serve all of their needs, the more time they're going to spend with that. Hence Netflix, right? I mean, Netflix is devouring eyeball time.
Right. And if I think about Apple Music alone, that's what we use as a family. We have a family plan. And why do I use Apple Music? Because when I'm in the gym, I can click a playlist, and it usually is something I want for a playlist. Or if I'm just wanting, some AC/DC, I can look. It's not as easy for me to do that in Spotify, and maybe it's an age thing. But for me, it's the Apple Music experience for me is better. Personally.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is probably generational too. This slide here, let me see if I got to click the right number here.
I love this slide.
This makes set me back, and I just scratch my chin a little bit on this, but this is huge.
Yeah, I think, and if walk with me, viewers and listeners, on this journey. What this illustrates is, if we just look at the two numbers on the right and the one on the bottom left, and sort of take them in this order, you have 20 million more people saying they have ever listened to a podcast, right?
Yep.
So we have this pie of 20 million new people. That's great.
That's fantastic.
17 million new monthly listeners, and then 14 million new weekly listeners. So think of that as a funnel, right? That's going from everybody to monthly to weekly. That's pretty good conversion. I mean, of all of these new people to the space, This is telling you roughly 2/3 of them are converting to regular listeners. And that's really good. And if we can keep those ratios up, and that's what's going to make more people become, have really the regular habit of seeking out new podcasts and adding podcasts to their daily consumption, where maybe they didn't even listen to audio before.
Yeah. And then the percentage of shows, a lot of people are talking about this, and looking at the number of podcasts listened to in a week. And, some people were surprised about the 6 to 10 number being at 17%. But I think the bigger number is the 4 to 5 at 21. I was looking at that, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any question that, first of all, having more podcasts in the space doesn't make this number go up. And I've seen,
right.
I think you guys have a better handle on what this number is. There's somewhere between 650,000 podcasts and 6 trillion. I don't know.
Right.
It's somewhere between those two. Making that number go up does not make this number go up.
Right.
What makes this number go up is people finding a great show and a context to listen to that show. And, I think there's no question that the raft of daily topical podcasts has added to the number of episodes that people can add in a week. If someone listens to Up First or The Daily or Today Explained, it's very likely they could add 5 shows a week to their original diet, right?
Yep.
That could easily put them into that 6 to 10 or 11 or more. So I think that's part of it. By no means does that indicate that podcasts should all be 12 minutes or less. There's room for every podcast, and that's, I've always said that. But having short topical daily podcasts is another context for podcasts. It's another option to fit the way people live their lives, because not everybody's going to listen to hardcore history. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be a hardcore history.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, though, if you look at I kind of try to look at this bubble, there's, we've got this big number, 675,000 podcasts, but, if we cleaned out the dead stuff,
yeah,
we'd ended up with about 130,000 active shows. And that, even though that number of total podcasts continue to go up, it seems we don't see too much of a shift. Shows roll off, shows roll on. And so what we're really talking about is, if you think about it, though, 120,000, 130,000 active shows. An active show would be a show that publishes an episode at least once every 90 days, or hopefully at least once within a 30-day period. If we're seeing the kind of growth we're seeing in the podcast space, and we're staying in that bubble of 120, 130,000 active shows, there's the numbers have to be rising for podcast listen. The number of people listening to a show, it has to, based on the
without
growth.
a doubt.
Yeah.
But you and the Robs, I think, have an interesting challenge, because before S-Town, let's say, it was pretty easy for you to look into your database and say, all right, look, and I will admit it right here. I will admit before the camera, I have pod-faded a podcast. I have also legitimately quit a podcast.
Me too.
But I've pod-faded
Me too.
a podcast,
I have too.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had some ugly children, and I've starved them. But that's going to be harder and harder for you guys to tell, I would think, because a podcast like what's a dead podcast? S-Town is a dead podcast, right? Dr. Death is a dead podcast. I'm not sure how you guys tell that anymore because there's so many more kind of short run podcasts that are dead technically that are still in the top 100.
So what we'll see, and I think this number holds true, and I referred to Ming Yang and the Quick and Dirty Tips group, for many years. Nobody does long tail better than they do, and she has episodes today that are 5 years old that get as many downloads this month as they did in the first month of their release. So and they're still putting on new shows. But I would be no doubt if she stopped putting out new episodes, she'd see a little drop off over time. But those old episodes are still super evergreen. But those super evergreen shows make up about 10% of the total active or total podcast. Whether it be of that 675,000, there's 10% of those that are like really juicy, super green that are continuing to achieve fantastic downloads month after month. And I think the longer they're been out, that probably those numbers drop. But it's something maybe we should look at. It is a good point.
Yeah, it's a puzzle. I think I don't know how you solve it. I think
drawing kind of a distinction between active shows and archive type shows, there may be a benefit there to listeners finding content that is compelling to them. I don't know. We've been playing around with. I've been wrestling with this. Even all the years that I ran the Zune podcasting platform. Had big catalog and had a lot of shows that were dead and ones that were active, and just kind of wrestled with, well, what's the definition of a show that is active, and is there a point where a show is taken down because it's dead, or what is that criteria to remove a show from a catalog? I was never able to kind of clearly delineate that because somebody would obviously be upset with that. So Tom, just give us your thoughts. Should we as platform owners that maybe have directories or whatever start thinking about creating kind of a delineation between active and archive programs?
I wouldn't wish that job on you guys for anything. Like, come on. Imagine, 5 years from now, taking Dirty John down.
Yeah.
You'll get a call from Hernan.
Yeah.
You'll get a call.
Well, no, I'm not saying take him down, Tom. I'm just saying, should we create a better discovery experience by highlighting and putting up front more of the active shows?
Well, I think you're assuming facts, not in evidence. To a listener, a good show is a good show.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't wish that on you guys for anything, because that sounds like a recipe for some tweets.
Well, really what we do, and be honest with you, is we haven't culled. I call it culling. I haven't cleaned, deleted, removed shows that are dead, but our algorithm knows when an RSS feed goes down, and it basically goes 401 or whatever. And we know when the media goes offline. So at some point, I think, and I would petition Apple to do this too, is at some point, if the feed in the media is dead, then maybe that's cause for making that show inactive and not show up in search results. But if that podcaster comes back, fixes his issue, then it can be coming up another active listing. I think that would help a lot.
Let me give you an absolutely ludicrous analogy, and if nothing else, it'll get a laugh.
Sure.
But I think it's not far. Imagine if you were if you ran a library, let's say a big. I'm here that's Boston behind me. You're here in a major urban city with a big library, and look, they've got all these dusty books from Charles Dickens. And the dude has not fixed his feed. And I don't think he's going to fix his feed. So I think we're going to clean all the Dickens out. I mean, is that the same thing? I don't know.
Well, if the media is not available, if you can't even play the media,
right?
There's just metadata only, and it's really
that's true. Yeah, I get that.
So then again, the next question is: should I take it upon myself as a directory owner? Should I start downloading every one of these shows, putting them into a bucket somewhere, and having that, when those feeds do go down, and do I then say, okay, I've got the master, let me go ahead and make sure that, am I a good corporate citizen in saying, okay, we'll hold this for infinity, or at least until I go out of business. Do we hold this in infinity to make sure that media stays online?
I mean, I guess that's a terms of service issue for you guys. It certainly is an infinity. I don't know if I'm either of you that's more than 30 days. But I think if you give somebody 30 days and you give them options, an easy way to pull the content out, or instructions on how to put it on SoundCloud
or archive it or someplace,
or archive, something like that. That's a terms of service issue. But I don't know. It seems to me that your two companies would want to stay out of that decision.
Well, at this point we are, and and so basically but what podcasters are complaining about, and I know we're holding you long here, Tom. So if you have to go, just say I got to go.
I'm late for a nap.
Is that podcasters are becoming pissed because the show names they want are already in use, or and it's a dead show, or number two, they're so buried when someone searches for a show because of these dead listings that the active listings are not rising to the top. The dead listings have more precedence. So I think that's what podcasters, and that's just a programming issue that could be fixed by saying, okay, we're going to give a higher ranking to shows that are, have published in the last year than those that 5 years from now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
well,
one thing
we need to get Gordon Firemark or somebody on the show about this, because our podcasts like books. I mean, right. I mean, if I put on a podcast called Serial, and it was entirely about RS-232 connections and the ways that computers talk to each other, I'm probably okay doing that.
Yeah, you probably are, but you're still going to have to fight.
That is true.
Yeah. So
that is true. I'm still going to have to lawyer up.
So example of that is I had the Cochrane News Network podcast, cnnpodcast.com.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
So that one, it was a network that it was, in its early stages of development. And, when CNN reached over and said, hey, we love that you got that domain. We'd like it. And when I said, well, how about, why did you pay for it? That was a nice letter from the lawyer. So, so there is issues there as well with domains and everything else. And we're dealing with one right now at the company, someone that is doing a little cyber squatting and trying to be funny. But it happens. And so, then it's the lawyers that get involved.
These are good problems to have, honestly. These are good. We didn't have these problems 10 years ago.
That's true.
Now you do.
Yeah.
So welcome to the big leagues.
So go ahead, Rob.
So I wanted to ask about one other slide that really kind of jumped out to me, and it's one that we haven't talked about here, is the audio sources currently ever used in a car.
Oh,
yeah.
So you start looking at that, and you're seeing some pretty interesting trend lines happening in that slide. Podcasts is the fastest growing source of audio in the car. So all the other ones are, I would say, Sirius is what grew 1%. But podcasts grew 3%, and pretty much all the others are either flat or declining. So I thought that was an interesting.
Well, new cars turn over really slowly, so we're always going to see these things move not as fast as in-home listening and at-work listening. The podcast jump was a big jump, without a doubt. The CD continues to hang on from the grave.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean, so many cars have CD players, right? And it's so easy. In many ways, it's easier to pop a CD in than it is to do anything else. And for a significant portion of the population, that's just fire and forget. The slide that I think was the most consequential in that section was the slide showing the percentage increase in people who have an in-dash entertainment system, a real integrated in-dash entertainment system. And that went from 15% to 19%, which in the world of new cars, that's a pretty serious jump. And we've learned something just real quick in another research project that we did called the Commuter Code, that the more technology and the more content options people have in their vehicle, the fewer things they listen to and the less they switch.
Interesting.
And that might seem counterintuitive to you because, look, you have this whole world of audio available to you. But what it means is I can get exactly what I want. And when I can get exactly what I want, that's what I'm going to listen to. And I'm not hopping around like I would be if I have to, listen to 9 minutes of commercials on the same 5 AM FM stations and so on. That's where people switch a lot. So that's, as that number goes up, the number of the percentage of people who have those systems in their car, all bets are off on what gets consumed in the car. AM FM is continuing to decline. It's not falling off a cliff.
No, and it's just, I think, what it was, at 1% or something drop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we're on a 10 to 15 year curve because the car I have, 2009, I'm getting ready to turn over to one of my kids. What are we using it? Mostly Bluetooth, because it has no info system. It has AM, FM, Sirius, which I don't get here in Hawaii. So, we use the Bluetooth almost exclusively. But my next vehicle, which is probably going to start with a FORD, I definitely guarantee it's going to have a great entertainment system in it. And
absolutely.
And I'll be, using that. So as people get new vehicles, I think the trend will continue. I think radio is not going to drop off a cliff no matter what. But it's just like the cable box or your television. The battle for the HDMI 1 port and the battle for what's in your dashboard, FM, AM being default, is that runs near over. My Sony TV that I have in the living room, when I turn it on, it brings me up a menu and I can listen to, I can go to YouTube, I can go to, there's options. I just don't have to. Matter of fact, we've cut the cord, so I don't even use the cable function anymore. I think the same thing's going to happen in the car. So if, I continue to be bullish, radio is going to be around for a long time, but not forever.
We're going to have radio cutters. Is that what we're...
Well, it's a long ways, 20, 25 years. Radio's still got a lot of life in it.
Well, and radio still remains, to me, kind of different from podcasting.
It's local.
In a lot of ways, right? It's live, it's local. I talk to analysts and reporters weekly who ask me, now, of course, we all know radio is dead. And I'm like, no, radio's not dead. And it really doesn't matter what tech goes in the car. There are still, millions and millions of people every day that choose to listen to the radio, even if they have other choices, because, that live local morning show with traffic and weather fills a service that right now podcasting really doesn't. So I wouldn't get cocky about that. And radio is going to stay strong for a long time. It's a massive cash flow business. I think there are a lot of people in radio that think that they have a place in podcasting. I think so many commercial radio stations, I think, Rob, you and I have talked about this, they've gotten out of the storytelling business. They have gotten out of the narrative content business. And I'm not sure they have the muscle memory to compete with podcasters that have been doing it for years. I mean, certainly public media does. But, the average commercial AM FM station in this country is AM FM, is just straight music, right?
Yeah.
I know that.
Or AM is talk. That's what largely AM has been regulated to at this point, is talk. Mm-hmm. But I used to turn on the radio when I was running my kid to school every day to get drive. But now Waze and Google tells me when I'm getting in the car at 43 minutes to school. That it tells me when I'm walking to the car. So I don't necessarily need drive as much anymore. Or if it says...
People like the voices, though. People like, even there's so many people have Waze in Google Maps.
Yeah.
People like to hear a voice tell them reassuringly, this is why this traffic is backed up. But we hear so many robot voices in our lives now with Alexa and Siri and, Waze.
I think you're right.
Robot voices. I think we're getting tired of them.
Yeah, and I think also it's like, okay, so we got a 3-car pileup on 101 North. Take the 15. Whatever the device is. I think that's how, because Waze doesn't tell me where to go unless I push the button. It says, "Here's your alternate route."
No, but Waze will, when you slow down enough, tell you that there's a Dunkin' Donuts a quarter of a mile from that accident. Wouldn't you like to have,
Yeah,
a donut?
Absolutely, sounds good.
Hey, I also saw a slide in here that also showed a different trend line, that the online audio listening in the car through a cell phone,
Yeah, it's dropped.
actually declined for the first time pretty much since you've been recording data.
Yeah.
What do you think that's an indication of?
That's 100% the corollary of the in-dash entertainment number going up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's 100% that, because it's, the cell phone as your entertainment system in the car is suboptimal, right?
Right.
If you are a solo driver, you can't
Mm-hmm.
really change what you're listening to without risk of death.
Yep.
It's a stopgap solution, and I would expect a stopgap solution like that to go down as integrated solutions in the car go up.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So it's interesting though. So we'll watch. That's the number, Rob, to watch over the next 10 years.
Yeah, it is. Well, that and what's the percentage of these cars that are going to come with built-in 4G, 5G connections into the dash, which I'm hearing is happening more and more too. So you may not even need your cell phone to get connectivity in the car.
But it comes at a monthly. You're going to have a monthly nut on that too.
Well, some of the car manufacturers are giving it away for certain period of time.
They give it away, but the monthly nut, Todd, are what we deem important for that monthly nut changes decade by decade by decade. And now you look at how much money we are spending as a society on subscription content, right? The average family. I don't know the exact number, but it would shock us, I'm sure, how much we're all spending on subscription content, paying for content, which did not exist 10 years ago, right? So saying that people won't pay for it, people used to pay for milk delivery. We don't pay for that anymore. That money went somewhere else.
That's right.
The money will come from somewhere, and something else will go away. It's just the way it is.
It's funny. We cut the cord, and then I've got Hulu. I've got Netflix. I've got, all this other stuff. And then you get done and you're like, oh, we're right back there at that, that sweet spot that cable wanted us to be paying them for.
You're paying $200 a month no matter what.
Right.
Whether you pay it to the cable company or you pay it to an assortment of services that fill in all of those gaps.
But by God, I've got a choice.
You have a choice. That's correct.
But Todd, now one other big change that happens if you're using any of these free TV viewing apps on like Roku and stuff is you're now forced to watch the TV commercials.
That's true.
Where before we could fast forward through them. Right?
Yep. And my wife was complaining about local news, and we're having trouble with the HD antenna thing. So I got our YouTube TV, so I'm right back in $40. So it's just like one half dozen the other.
Right.
Well, Tom, this was it's very insightful. Research. This is another great release, and I guess we haven't really been on a panel with you in a while. What do you think, with everything going on in this space, where do you think we're headed? I guess that's my.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to end the show on a downer, because I'm still bullish on the space, and I gave a talk on this data very recently at a summit with a bunch of podcasting people, and I was the most popular person in the room.
Oh, I'm sure,
because of how much the space had grown. But there's a cap on the space. There's a cap on spoken word content.
Yep.
Right. We're not at that cap yet, but that we don't go to 100. I'll put it to you that way. Do we go to 50? Do we go to 60 for monthly, weekly listeners? I don't know what that is.
Yep.
But whenever someone takes in a show, something else has to go. And that's the thing I would encourage all podcasters to think about, is that even though the audio space is still growing, my attention, I have exactly 16 hours a day that I can devote to some kind of media, whether it's text, audio, or video. And if you are creating a podcast, it's not enough just to think about your topic. You need to think about how it's going to slot into someone else's day and give them the mental tools to place your show in that slot because something else has to go.
Yeah, I've said forever that people build you into their lives. You have to consider that.
Right.
And if you, it's just like missing an episode, they'll fill you with something else. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and I listen to this. I listen to this show. Most weeks I listen to this show,
and when
I do, it's live.
Right.
It's Saturday at noon for me, and it's whatever it is. Last week for you, Todd. I'm not good at time zones.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like Saturday at noon. I'm eating lunch, and I can throw the show on. I may not listen to it every week. I listen to it most weeks, and there are lots of podcasts and live things that are just like that for me. They've become habit because I know what to do with them. And I think actually having a live broadcast that goes with the podcast helps with that.
Yeah. I believe that's the secret sauce to the success of this show. Rob and I notice it when we're, when I'm traveler, he's in travel and we can only do audio only. And I'm getting ready to pack the studio up and move and here in May. So there's going to be a little bit of an impact there, although I'm thinking some ways to get back up to speed pretty quick on video so that we're not losing video for 2 months. But, it is definitely, I fully understand that. But it's interesting you say, though, you think we're heading towards a cap because the cap would be in what people can listen to. But I'm also thinking there's this potential a cap in the amount of, there's a lot of money that's come into space. And I'm like, well, I'm glad it's not my money. 100 million here, 50 million there, whatever it may be. That's a lot of earballs to recover and to make a business and to be profitable enough to go to the next level before the cash runs out. I'm glad I'm not in the position to have to worry about the cash running out. I think a lot of these groups have some challenges ahead, but there's going to be some stupid money thrown at podcasters. Get your everyone, if they come with the stupid money, cash the check.
Well, and I'd like to take this moment really to announce that I'm available to be acquired.
Oh, awesome.
So Disney, here I am, acquire me.
I'm second
Not
announcement.
Edison, just me.
Blueberry is available to be acquired. New media shows available to be acquired. And it's everything's for sale for enough zeros.
No doubt.
But read the contract very closely.
That's right. Yeah.
Because history repeats itself. I just I think back to the pod show days, and what happened there, and contracts and people, getting, and at that time it was fantastic money. And then shows that were just devastated or destroyed when that business went out because they sometimes, look at Loria, she couldn't take a show with her based on the network she was in and they controlling the name and all that stuff. So, there are consequences to contract language. So, I just encourage everyone to take any contract you're given to a lawyer. Don't assume you know what they're saying in the contract.
Yeah, don't play internet lawyer yourself.
No,
go to a lawyer.
Lawyer. Pay the money. If they're going to write you
Zoom that. Go to a lawyer.
If you're going to write the check, pay the $500 or $1,000 to have this thing read and reviewed and redlined. And because contracts are cool because you can put lines through sentences and the other company has to either say, yeah, we'll take that out or no, we won't. But you can at least fight for it.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of caps on this space, I did notice in the research, Tom, that over the last couple of years, it feels like that the smartphone adoption number has flatlined as well. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think that there is an upper limit to this, but it does kind of make me wonder, though, as you look at radio and you look at the adoption of podcasts in the car, that we got a long road ahead, right, to get to that cap. It seems like.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We're not. We won't be announcing it next year. That's for sure.
Right.
There's still a lot of and I've said this for a couple of years. And when most cars on the road have an integrated digital dashboard, the in-car media habits are going to be drastically different than they are now. And that's that is really the next big shoe to drop for podcasting.
Yeah,
I mean, once autonomous cars start coming out too, people can do a lot of other stuff in the car, not just listen to audio. And that's
It's funny you bring that up, Rob, because I've had people talk to me about that. And look, we research video as well. That once we have autonomous cars and we already have Uber and Lyft, and we're already used to being backseat riders, right? That video will overtake audio in the car and so on. I'm not entirely sure that's true. It will absolutely.
I don't know either, right?
Audio.
Yeah,
it'll absolutely cut into audio, but I still think people like to look out the window. And listen to something. You know
what? It's interesting because I talk my adult children into driving sometimes, and let them control the Bluetooth, which can be annoying. But I spend most of my time when someone else is driving me, Uber, Lyft. I'm like catching up on social. That's that's my time, because it doesn't take a lot of brain thought. I don't have to actually work on a paper. I can't imagine trying to actually do work while driving. There's no way. It's just going to be too distracting with everything, looking up, braking, there's no way you can do work, but I think you can do social and those, yes, you can use this microphone or those mind-numbing things that you need to respond to. So it'd be curious to see how people actually, or what they do when they're driven by their car to the office.
Yeah. Well, like anything else, there'll be different segments doing different things.
Yeah.
And it's all about trust too. I mean, do you trust to look down while your car is driving?
Well, the point that they are at that point, but we're 10 years away from being at that point too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I got a ride in an autonomous car in Vegas when I was at CES, and it was a pretty unique experience. First of all, I thought that it would just be an empty car picking me up. It wasn't. There were two people in the car. There was a driver who largely didn't touch the wheel, and then there was a safety officer. And this was a company that's really trying to do a lot of lobbying for getting autonomous vehicles tested in more and more cities. And I, it was a nice car. It was like a BMW 7 Series or something like that, and it was it was kind of a cool experience. But I wouldn't not pay attention to the road in one of those things. No way.
Yeah. And then there's all kinds of legislation that's going to happen before that. What happens when the car hits somebody and kills somebody, and it's in full autonomous. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of things that are going to happen. Who's then liable?
Yeah. Well, and even just, even when we were driving a short distance on the Strip, I was in, as I said, I was in Vegas, and there's a lot of traffic on the Strip during CES and lots of pedestrians crossing and lots of cars. And I'm looking at all of them thinking, congratulations, you just signed up for our beta test.
Right.
You didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, anyway, there's exciting times ahead. Tom, thanks for coming on and sharing with us. Any final thoughts, or how can people reach you?
I'm easy to find on Twitter at Webby2001. TomWebster.net is kind of a temporary site for me right now with a bunch of recent talks and articles I've written on it. And of course, EdisonResearch.com is where you can find the Infinite Dial and all the other audio work that we've released.
You going to be at NAB?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. My next trip is I'm in Switzerland next weekend for Radio Days Europe, which is one of my favorite conferences. It's really one of the best audio conferences in the world.
And not that you get to go to Switzerland.
Well, last year was Vienna. The year before was Amsterdam. So as long as they'll keep having me back, it's not a hard decision to make.
Yeah, those are nice, sweet conference spots. It's like, we're going to Switzerland for a conference, and people start throwing baseballs at you. So, thanks for coming on, and very, very cool stuff. Rod, did you have anything final or for him?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll probably see you next at Podcast Movement. All right.
Yeah, if not before. I may show up at NAB. I'm not sure. I don't have specific plans. Edison will be there, but I am not Edison. We are large.
Yep. We are Podcast Village in Central Hall. So we moved up with the big kids. We're up front. So I'm very excited. Yeah, very excited about that. And we got into.
You're out of accessories and you're finally into menswear.
Yeah, and we got a position in the space that normally takes 20 years to get to. So I'm very, very pleased with NAB's support of that. So the traffic will definitely be up.
Right.
So stop and see us if you come to NAB.
Well, hope you both have a great NAB, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
See ya.
Well, a lot to digest, Rob.
Yes. Well, it's all good stuff. We're charging the hill, and the medium is growing, and we're seeing good adoption numbers of listeners. We just got to keep it going, just like what we were talking about earlier with Google Podcasts and Pandora and those. I think those are all important keys to seeing more growth.
Yeah.
So especially on the listener side.
And we got him for a whole hour.
I know, it's pretty awesome.
It is awesome. If you think about everything he's talking about in this survey, to me, there's been in the past where I've kind of like, but I think this one, I was like, and having him go through it, the story's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think and I think in my mind at least, I don't have any problem digesting the numbers. So I think they did a really good job this year on this thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if next year's study shows a continuation of the elevation of the growth of the medium, or if we're going to see it taper off a little bit. So
well,
interesting.
I think it all depends on how the execution is and the news that's generated by all these people that have gotten all this crazy money. I think that'll help the space as well. But
yeah,
it's like we didn't really dog Google too much there, but Google needs to get their act together. They are just what I don't know if they're hamstrung over there through the bureaucracy of monumental 800-pound gorilla. If that's just things can't move that fast, or
I think probably what's going on over there, Todd, is there's probably fairly limited resources that have been allocated to this. So that would be my guess. From what I've heard, they only have a couple of developers. So it's not like they've dedicated a lot of resources to this project. So this is not unlike my experience, at Microsoft working on podcasts. There's just not a lot of dedicated resources to this because it's not a top priority for the company. So, I mean, that would be the kind of logical explanation for what we're seeing here, just based on, me spending time with big companies like this and how they think of things like this. It just depends on how much of a financial motivation that they have to generate some sort of advertising revenue from this. If that's the ultimate objective here, I'm not sure. That will drive increased resources, but until there's a financial motivation or a higher priority put on the project, we're probably going to see these incremental improvements, and because there's only a couple of developers.
Yeah. And I guess it's a story of my life too, because I'm always waiting on the developers.
Yeah. Right.
It's Achilles' heel of anything else, and developers are expensive. So, it's when you're running on a true budget and you don't have $100 million to flush down the toilet, you can, you have to build because you can't build a company just on devs. So.
Right.
It is an interesting time. Let me go over and look and see if anyone was watching and see if I'm not seeing anything from our @not_Nick Qua hasn't responded. It is interesting. Tom was interested in this Twitter user as well. So it's gotten some attention, and somebody is maybe not happy, huh?
Well, we'll see, right?
Right.
We'll see what happens with this. I don't know. It's a fun thing, so we'll see if it is kept on a positive note, right?
Right. If it's a little more digging. So.
Yeah. I like his pin tweet. So Does anyone know when Alex Inc. comes out on DVD?
Oh my gosh.
I think that's a form of podcast distribution, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, so Dallas Taylor says getting ripped into by the @not_Nick Quall will be the new standard of making it in podcasting. That's funny.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, well, at least it's not @Rob Greenlee.
There you go. Thank goodness for small favors. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we should talk about? Did we miss?
Well, I think we covered a lot this week. I mean, I think, so are we back next week?
We are. So just so you know, let me look at what the schedule looks like. Definitely will be able to do the 30th. I am going to be in Vegas, flying into Vegas on the 6th. So why don't we plan, maybe we can do maybe we can do a show.
Like on Friday?
Yeah, maybe do a show before the show on Friday, and then matter of fact, let's plan on that. Let's go if you can do that. We'll do that on the 5th. I've got we may have to go half hour later because I've got a call with the lady that's doing the panel. Or maybe that's next week. I don't know. I have to look at my schedule, but yeah, we'll figure it out. But so then I don't get back though, Rob, until April 14th. I actually don't fly back until the 14th. I spend a couple extra days in Vegas, so we'll have to play it by ear if we do a show on the 13th.
Yeah, I fly back on April 12th from Vegas.
Yeah. Then things kind of get weird for me. I'll be able to do a show on the 20th, but I fly out the night of the 20th of April. We're way ahead here, a whole month, but go to Columbus. I'm there all week. Then there's going to be a couple of weeks that I'm going to have challenges doing the show. It's just because of things going on. So we'll see if maybe we can do it. Maybe we'll do a couple weekday shows at that point. So I'll let you know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Anyway, so everyone, thanks for being here. We helped a lot of people on different streams today. So a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of people on in and out on Facebook Live. And of course, don't forget to go to newmediashow.com and click on that subscribe button. That way you can be guaranteed you're not going to miss an episode when we're actually on schedule. And again, if you have ideas for the new media show studio and what I should do, let me know. And so we're going to be, or at least I'm going to be spending some money to build some new spots. Maybe I'll just go throw up a green screen and we'll put funny back images on or something, Rob. Who knows? But
there you go. You could also go take a look at what Leo Laporte's done with his little studio with the large monitors.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that. I don't know if I have Leo's budget though.
I know.
Are the monitors? Oh, they're on a table, right? He pulls the monitors up to the table.
Yeah, exactly. They're on like wheels, so you can just pull them up right next to you.
Yeah, that's an idea. We'll see. Or anyway, but yeah, I'd love to have you guys' ideas on what we should do. What would make it cool, more fun. Have a circus act on the right hand side or something to that effect. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that we can do to spice us up, take it to the next level, Todd.
Yeah, just got to pray that the container with all this stuff in doesn't fall off the ship or doesn't get in a train derailment as it's going across the United States. So just so you know, just a little trivia question or a little trivia knowledge for you. How much do you think it costs to move from Hawaii to Michigan with a 20-foot container?
Maybe $5,000 or $6,000, probably.
Oh, almost $7,000.
Okay. So
you're pretty close. Pretty close.
It was just a guess.
It's not cheap. So, by the way, we did get a couple of donations for the show, and I'm sorry I don't have it top of my head who did donate. We do appreciate the 5s and 10s, but be honest with you, with the move, I could use like some $100 donations. And anything we get, I'll just be straight up. Anything we get for donations for the show, I'll put into the new studio with Rob's permission, unless he wants his cut of the $10.
No,
so
go ahead and put it into the studio, Todd.
So we want to thank everyone for being here. Maybe I'm going to have to build a wall like Leo did, right? Sell bricks.
Right.
Yeah, but that would be real original, the brick house.
There you go.
Todd at blueberry.com, and maybe the email will get to me if Google doesn't throw it to spam. Rob?
You can find me on Twitter as well, Rob Greenlee. So at Rob Greenlee, and then robgreenlee.com. And I also do the Spreaker Live Show every week, also at spreakerliveshow.com. So those are the best places. And you can send me an email too, rob at voxnest.com. You can use that address too. I've got plenty of email addresses, but that's one of them.
You're the man of 100 email addresses, and of course, right. I'm at Geek News on Twitter. And everyone, thanks for hanging out. And again, Tom, if you're continuing to watch, thanks for coming on today. And
thanks,
we'll be back at the same time next week with my 4:45 a.m. wake up call.
Wow!
Damn the time change.
Not for much longer, Todd.
Not for much longer. All right, everyone, take care. We'll see you next time here on the New Media Show. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.